My husband of 45 years ended up in the emergency room with his pants around his ankles and his secret girlfriend screaming in the hospital parking lot. At 67 years old, I discovered that Charles wasn't just cheating on me. He learned the hard way not to mess with Helen Montgomery from Atlanta, Georgia. If you're new here, subscribe now because this story will leave you speechless. I'm not one to air dirty laundry. My mama raised me better than that, but some stories need telling, especially when they might help another woman standing where I stood last summer, wondering if the ache in her heart would ever stop. I've lived in the same brick ranch house on Peachtree Drive for nearly 4 decades. Our neighborhood is the kind where folks still bring casseroles when someone's sick, and everyone knows whose hydrangeas won at the garden club last spring. Mine did, 3 years running. Charles and I moved here right after our wedding in '79. He was handsome then, tall with salt and pepper hair that made the church ladies fan themselves during Sunday service. We raised our son Michael here, watched him grow, and saw him move to California with his fancy computer job. These days, it's just me, my cat Biscuit, and, until recently, the man I thought would be by my side until the good Lord called us home. That summer day started like any other. The Georgia heat pressed down like a hot iron, the asphalt shimmering, the cicadas screaming from the magnolias lining our street. I was in the kitchen, stirring sweet tea so sugary it could make your teeth ache, when Charles announced he needed to run errands. Nothing unusual there. Every Saturday, he'd take his pride and joy, a cherry red 1969 Chevy Impala, out for what he called old man time, usually the hardware store or Jim's barbershop for a trim and all the gossip our corner of Atlanta could muster. "Don't wait lunch on me, Helly," he said, jingling his keys. Charles is the only one who's ever called me Helly. I used to think it was sweet. Might swing by Danny's to look at that fishing gear he's selling. I nodded, wiping my hands on my apron. "Take your time," I said. "I've got my book club ladies coming over at 4. He kissed my cheek, quick and distracted, and the screen door slammed behind him. I should have known something was wrong right then. Saturday was our day. For decades, we'd have lunch on the back porch, watching hummingbirds bicker over my feeders, their wings a blur of defiance. But the signs had been there for months, late nights, new cologne, phone calls he'd step outside to take. I hadn't wanted to see them. In a marriage as long as ours, you develop a kind of blindness, a trust as automatic as brewing coffee or checking the locks before bed. You stop wondering where they go when they're not with you, not because you don't care, but because you've built a life on the assumption they'll always come back. It wasn't until I realized I'd forgotten to give Charles his blood pressure pills that everything changed. The doctor had warned us, skip a day and his pressure could spike. That man's stubborn as a mule about his medication. So, I grabbed the orange bottle and headed to the garage, hoping to catch him before he left the neighborhood. His car was gone. I stood in the empty garage, the heat pressing in, and noticed something odd. His fishing tackle wasn't by the workbench. If he was going to Danny's for fishing gear, why take his own? Then I remembered he'd complained about the Chevy's glove compartment sticking. He kept a spare key there, and a stuck compartment wouldn't do in an emergency. I had my own key. I could fix it before he got back. A small kindness in a marriage full of them. I crossed the street to Mrs. Abernathy's carport, where Charles parked his precious Chevy to protect the paint job from the Sunday. Doris never minded. She's been sweet on Charles since we moved in, though she thinks I don't notice. The car gleamed like a fresh-picked cherry, its chrome sparkling in the sunlight, the leather seats pristine despite decades of use. I ran my hand over the warm hood, appreciating why Charles loved this car. It was a beauty, a relic of a time when things were built to last, unlike some promises. I unlocked the passenger door, the hot air hitting my face as I leaned in to pop the glove compartment. It opened easily, no sticking at all. That was my first clue. Then they tumbled out 5 unopened condoms, landing on the cream-colored leather like evidence at a crime scene. My heart stopped, my ears rang. The world, Mrs. Abernathy's azaleas, the neighbor's sprinkler, kids on bikes faded until it was just me and those foil packets that had no business in my husband's car. Charles and I hadn't needed condoms since Michael's birth, after complications led to a permanent solution. So why did my 70-year-old husband have them now? The answer was as clear as the Georgia sky. I noticed a lipstick smudge on the passenger headrest, a red I'd never worn, bold and brassy like the women in Buckhead who shopped at boutiques I couldn't afford. I sat in the driver's seat, the leather creaking under me, gripping the steering wheel as my wedding ring caught the sunlight, sending rainbows across the dashboard. I'd never been one for crying, but something broke inside me, like a dam after too much rain. Our house on Peachtree Drive wasn't much, just a brick ranch, like others on our street, but I'd poured my heart into it. The azaleas I planted when Michael graduated, the butter yellow kitchen I painted when Charles got promoted, the porch swing where we'd watch lightning bugs flicker while our sweet tea melted. Everyone thought we were that couple, the ones who'd figured it out. We hosted the 4th of July block party, Charles in his kiss the cook apron, me refilling solo cups with my famous punch. Pastor Williams even asked us to lead the marriage retreat last year, saying we were an example. What a crock. I slipped the condoms into my pocket and locked the car, waving at Doris, who'd appeared at her screen door, probably wondering why I was in Charles's car. Just looking for something, I called, forcing a smile that felt like it might crack my face. Found it. Inside our house, I sank onto a kitchen stool, the cool tile under my bare feet anchoring me. The ceiling fan spun lazily, stirring the humid air. From here, I saw our life. The fridge plastered with Michael's school pictures, the china cabinet with my mother's dishes, the bless this home sign from my sister Judy. A joke. Charles's recliner with its permanent dent, his Field and Stream magazines, his fishing trophies I'd dusted for decades. They mocked me now. I'd washed his clothes, ironed his shirts, avoided his heartburn triggers, all while he was sneaking around, making a fool of me. The condoms burned in my pocket. The microwave clock read 11:32. Charles's errands would keep him out for another hour, maybe more if he was with her. I imagined her a bottle blonde from his office or a golf course fling, laughing at the trusting wife at home. I pushed the thought away and did what Southern women do in a crisis. I made sweet tea. 4 cups of sugar, 8 tea bags, a pinch of baking soda, my mama's recipe. The ritual calmed me, gave me space to think. By the time the tea was over ice, a plan was forming. Charles thought he could have his cake and eat it too. We'd see about that. As the sweet tea cooled in its pitcher, I sat at the kitchen table, rolling one of those cursed condoms between my fingers, its foil glinting like it was mocking me. The house was quiet, save for the hum of the fridge and the distant buzz of a neighbor's lawnmower, a sound as familiar as my own heartbeat in this Atlanta suburb where life moved slow, like molasses in January. But my world had tilted off its axis, and I couldn't sit still in the wreckage. Charles Montgomery wasn't going to play me for a fool any longer. I needed proof, not just for me, but for the life we'd built, the one I'd thought was ours. I called Marge Wilson, our neighborhood's unofficial news network, faster than a telegraph and twice as nosy. "Marge, it's Helen," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "I'm planning a special anniversary surprise for Charles, and I need your help keeping it quiet." Marge squealed with delight. She lives for secrets. "You know I've got your back, honey. What's the plan? It's not your anniversary for months." "That's why it'll be such a surprise," I replied, the lie coming easier than I expected. "I'm thinking a party next Saturday. Just close friends and neighbors." Marge was practically bouncing through the phone. "How many years will it be?" 45, I said, the number bitter on my tongue, like biting into a persimmon before it's ripe. 45 long years. After hanging up, I stared at the kitchen, at the life I'd curated with care. The embroidered dish towels from my mother, the ceramic rooster Charles bought me at a county fair, the calendar pinned to the wall with church events circled in red. Southern women are taught to build homes like fortresses, to hold families together with grit and grace. But what do you do when the enemy's already inside the walls? I couldn't just wait for Charles to come home, whistling like nothing was wrong. I needed to know who she was, where he went when he wasn't here, what kind of life he was building behind my back. So, I did something I'd never done before. I got in my Buick sedan, the sensible car we'd bought when gas prices spiked, and followed my husband. The Georgia sun beat down as I drove, the air thick with humidity that clung to my skin like regret. I parked across from the Magnolia Creek Golf Club, where Charles claimed to spend his Tuesdays and Thursdays. Sipping gas station coffee that tasted like burnt regret, I waited, feeling like a character in one of Charles's crime shows. His cherry red Chevy pulled into the lot at 9:30, right on schedule. He got out, golf bag slung over his shoulder, looking every bit the respectable retiree in his polo shirt and khakis. I expected him to head to the first tee with his usual foursome, Hank, Bernie, and that guy with the toupee like a drowned squirrel. But 15 minutes later, he emerged from the clubhouse without his clubs, hopped into his car, and drove off, heading north on Peachtree Road. My heart hammered as I followed, keeping a few cars back, my hands sweaty on the wheel. We ended up in Buckhead, Atlanta's glittering enclave where the houses look like they belong in magazines, not real life. Charles pulled into the circular driveway of a sprawling Tudor-style home, all manicured hedges and a fountain that probably cost more than our mortgage. This wasn't just money, this was old money, the kind that buys summer homes and knows the difference between a salad fork and a dessert fork. Charles checked his hair in the rearview mirror, a gesture I'd seen 1,000 times before church or dinner parties, then walked to the front door with a bounce in his step. The door opened before he could knock, and his face lit up like the 4th of July. I couldn't see who greeted him, but I didn't need to. That smile told me everything. I sat in my Buick, the air conditioning wheezing against the heat, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. I thought I might be sick, but instead, something colder took root: rage, sharp and calculating. I snapped a photo of the house, making sure to get the street number, and saved the location on my phone. Evidence, just in case. Driving home, I passed a billboard for a divorce lawyer, all bold red letters, and a smug man in a suit pointing like Uncle Sam, wronged by a cheating spouse? You deserve your fair share. I almost laughed. My fair share wasn't money, it was justice. Back home, I poured a glass of sherry, the good stuff we kept for Christmas, and sat on the porch, watching a hummingbird dart at my feeder, fierce and unrelenting. That's right, little friend, I murmured, raising my glass. No more playing nice. I pulled out my address book, flipping to Letitia Burns, a former colleague from Peachtree Elementary. Her daughter, Shanice, was a private investigator now. I needed documentation, undeniable proof. But Charles handled our phone bills, so I'd need a burner phone to avoid his prying eyes. The thought made me chuckle. Helen Montgomery, church choir member and pie-baking champion, plotting like a TV detective. The next morning, while Charles whistled in the shower, I lay in bed, listening to the water run and wondering how many times he'd washed away her perfume before climbing in beside me. He announced he was off to a board meeting at the Peachtree Senior Center, a role he'd taken up after retiring from the insurance company. I'd been proud of him, thinking he was giving back to our community. Now I wondered if it was just another excuse to slip away. "Will you be home for dinner?" I asked, my voice neutral. "Don't wait up," he said, kissing my forehead. "The fellas usually grab a bite after." The fellas. Right. I smiled tightly. "Drive safe." As soon as his car left, I drove to a Walmart on Moreland Avenue, far from our neighborhood's prying eyes. I bought a prepaid phone with cash, avoiding the security cameras like a seasoned criminal. In the parking lot, I activated it and called Shanice. "Burns Investigations," her crisp voice answered. "Is this Shanice? This is Helen Montgomery, from Peachtree Elementary with your mother. Mrs. Montgomery, those Christmas cookies were legendary. What can I do for you?" I hesitated, the words heavy. "I need proof of my husband's affair. Photos, dates, times, everything." There was a pause, then her tone softened. "I'm sorry you're going through this. Can you come by my office this afternoon?" At 2, I sat in Shanice's small office above a midtown dentist, the hum of drills filtering through the floor. I laid out everything: the condoms, the lipstick, the Buckhead house, the mall encounter. Shanice took notes, her face professional but kind. "This Mrs. Patterson, you're sure she's married to a doctor?" That's what she told the Nordstrom saleswoman, Dr. Richard Patterson. Shanice smiled, a quick flash of teeth. "Doctors leave paper trails. I'll have his info by tomorrow. What are you planning, Mrs. Montgomery? Divorce?" I hesitated. "I haven't decided. I just want proof, undeniable proof." She studied me, her dark eyes sharp. "Most people who come here already know what they want. They just need the evidence." She was right. I wanted Charles exposed, not just to me, but to everyone who thought he was the perfect husband. "I can get what you need," she said. "It'll take a few days, about $600, half now, half later." I handed over 3 $100 bills from my emergency fund. When can you start? Already have, she said, glancing at her screen. There are 3 Richard Pattersons in Atlanta. One's a plastic surgeon in Buckhead. That's him, right? I nodded. Of course, a plastic surgeon, explained Mrs. Patterson's flawless neck. Driving home, I felt a strange mix of nausea and empowerment. I was no longer the trusting wife, baking pies and tending hydrangeas. I was Helen the Avenger, a woman with a plan. I stopped at a Kroger on Ponce de Leon, not our usual Publix, to avoid gossip. My cart filled with Imodium, X-Lax, laxative tea, prune juice, magnesium citrate items that, if mixed carefully, would wreak havoc at just the right moment. The cashier raised an eyebrow. Somebody having digestive issues? I smiled, my church lady smile. My poor husband. Men of a certain age, you know. She nodded sympathetically, oblivious to the storm brewing in my cart. At home, I hid the supplies behind the guest towels in the linen closet, then pulled out our photo albums. 5 decades of memories. Our wedding, Charles holding baby Michael, family vacations. I selected a dozen photos for Marge's slideshow, a perfect backdrop for the betrayal I'd reveal. As I worked, a photo slipped out us at Niagara Falls, 10 years ago, Charles's arm around me, both of us squinting into the sun, happy. Had it been a lie even then? The question stung, but I pushed it aside. What mattered was now. Charles's car pulled into the driveway earlier than expected. I shoved the albums away and sat with my book club novel, The Picture of Calm. Meeting end early? I asked. Cancelled, he said, loosening his tie. Bill Thompson's got that stomach bug going around. I hid a smile behind my teacup. A stomach bug, how fitting. 3 days after meeting Shanice, my burner phone buzzed with a text. Package ready for pickup. My heart skipped a beat. The evidence was in. I told Charles I was lunching with my book club ladies, a lie he swallowed without a blink, too wrapped up in his own deceptions to spot mine. The mid-July heat was brutal, the air thick as sorghum syrup, my Buick's AC laboring as I drove to Shanice's office. By the time I parked, my blouse clung to my back, my hands trembling on the wheel. Upstairs, Shanice waited with a manila envelope and a kind smile. Mrs. Montgomery, she said, motioning to a chair. I've got everything. I sat, my mouth dry as cotton. Tell me. She spread the contents. Photos of Charles and Elizabeth Patterson, entering and leaving the Tudor house, holding hands at a discreet restaurant. Charles trailing her at Lenox Mall like a lovesick puppy. The worst was them kissing in his Chevy at Chastain Park. His hands in her hair, her body leaning over the console. The intimacy struck like a slap. They meet 3 or 4 times a week, Shanice said gently. Usually at her house when the doctor's at work, sometimes lunch, twice at the Street Regis downtown. I stared, reconciling this passionate Charles with the man who dozed in his recliner nightly for a decade. And her husband? Dr. Richard Patterson, 62, chief of plastic surgery at Northside Hospital. By all accounts, busy with his own affair, a 2-year-old office manager. Shanice raised an eyebrow. Nobody's faithful here. Except me, I whispered. There's more, she said, sliding a report. Financials. He's moved small amounts. Nothing IRS flagging, but over 18 months. It's $30,000 in a separate account. The betrayal deepened. Not just his heart, but our nest egg. Scraped together through lean years at the insurance company, skipping vacations to save for retirement. And the kicker, a printed email from his secret account. They were planning a Cayman Islands trip next month, one-way tickets. He wasn't just cheating, he was planning to vanish with our money, start fresh with Elizabeth. Are you all right? Shanice's voice echoed distantly. I nodded, gathering the papers. I'd like copies. Already made, she said, handing another envelope and a USB. The originals are yours. What you do is your business. She paused. For what it's worth, he's a fool. On the drive home, I stopped at Walgreens for poster board and markers, then Office Depot to enlarge the damning photos. The kiss, the hotel check-in, the shopping spree. Charles was at golf perfect. I spread everything on the dining room table, gluing photos to the board, adding bold red captions. This would be the centerpiece of the anniversary party, the visual for my speech that would shatter Charles's double life. The party was Saturday, 3 days away. Marge confirmed 40 guests, friends, neighbors, church folk. Even Michael was flying in from California, staying with friends to keep the surprise. I hadn't told him yet he'd learn with everyone. While Charles showered Thursday morning, I mixed extra-strength Imodium into his coffee, not enough for immediate trouble, but building a constipation bomb to detonate at the party. I'd researched dosages carefully. Nothing dangerous, just humiliating. Southern hospitality teaches us to serve with a smile, but it doesn't say what's in the cup. That evening, Charles complained of feeling off. Maybe that stomach bug, I suggested innocently. The one Bill Thompson had. He rubbed his abdomen. Maybe. I don't feel right. Rest tomorrow, I said, all concern. Skip golf, he agreed, telling, since he probably planned to see Elizabeth anyway. Too bad he'd spent it on the toilet. Friday, I doubled the Imodium in his coffee. By afternoon, he was fidgety in his recliner, bathroom trips yielding nothing but frustration. Should I call the doctor? I asked from the doorway. No, he winced. Just indigestion. I'll be fine by tomorrow. If you're sure, I said, turning to hide my smile. I'd picked up the cake from a bakery. Shanice recommended not our usual, to avoid suspicion. 3 tiers of vanilla buttercream with sugar flowers, but the topper was custom. A single woman standing tall, head high me, post Charles. The baker gave me an odd look, but she'd nailed it. Special occasion? Very, I said. The start of the rest of my life. Saturday dawned clear, God's spotlight on Charles's reckoning. I woke early, heart racing with anticipation and grief. Today, no going back. Charles slept fitfully, his face pinched, the Imodium at work. He'd been up half the night, gurgling and cramping. I padded to the kitchen for breakfast. Pancakes with maple syrup, his favorite crispy bacon, orange juice, coffee. All laced with laxatives, timed to erupt by party time. The house was quiet, birds chirping outside, oblivious to the drama. How many meals had I made here, watching Charles eat without question, never dreaming I deserved more than his half-hearted thanks? He stumbled in, drawn by the smells, lowering himself gingerly. Morning, he grunted. Didn't sleep worth a damn. Still not well? I poured his doctored coffee. Maybe call Dr. Harris. Nah. He reached for the laxative-laced juice. Need something in my stomach. Looks great, Helly. I watched him gulp half the juice, sip the coffee. Trap set. Any plans today? He asked, buttering pancakes. The question almost made me laugh if he knew mine. This and that, I said. Marge might stop by. He nodded, burying himself in the newspaper, tuning me out, a habit I'd ignored for years. After breakfast, he showered. I'd added magnesium citrate to his body wash, absorbable through skin. By afternoon, chaos inside him. Once settled with golf on TV, I left for church business, really the community center. Neighbors had transformed it. Blue and silver decorations, twinkling lights, our enlarged wedding photo front and center. Space for the cake, and behind, cloth-covered, my poster board. Helen, Marge hurried over, flushed. Looks wonderful. Pastor Williams confirms 4 for words on lasting love. Caterers are set. I smiled, letting her chatter flow. She thought we were celebrating a marriage. We were burying one. Has Michael arrived? Right here, Mom. My son approached, arms open. Charles's spitting image. Same height, build, crinkling smile. Seeing him was like glimpsing the man I'd loved, before the lies. Oh, sweetheart. I hugged him tight. You too, Mom. He pulled back. You seem tense. Party nerves, I said. A lot today. He nodded. Dad has no idea. He'll be blown away. Completely surprised, I promised. For hours, I bustled. Table settings, name cards, stocking the bar with Charles's whiskey. Everything perfect. This party would be unforgettable. At 3, I called Charles. Honey, meet me at the community center? Bathroom light fixture issue. Marge says you can fix it. He sighed. Today? I'm still not great, Haley. Please? Won't take long. I cooed helplessly. It always worked. Fine, 15 minutes. I hung, turning to Marge. He's coming. Everyone hide. 40 people scattered behind tables, columns. Michael bounced beside me. He'll love this. I squeezed his hand. It'll be memorable. 17 minutes later, Charles always late, the doors opened. He stepped in, pale in khakis and polo, squinting. Haley, Marge, Where's this fixture? Surprise! Cheers erupted. His jaw dropped, eyes scanning the hall, the banner. Happy 45th anniversary, Charles and Helen. For a moment, he looked touched. Then his gaze met mine. Guilt. Panic flickered. The trap snapped shut. Speech! Someone called, the chant rising. Friendly hands pushed him forward. He grabbed my hand, palm clammy. Helen, you did this? Wanted it special, I said steadily. 45 years is an accomplishment, right? Before he could reply, Pastor Williams took the mic. Friends, we celebrate a rare thing, a marriage that stood the test of time. Murmurs of approval. Charles shifted, hand on stomach, the laxative stirring. Timing is everything. Charles and Helen Montgomery have been pillars of our community, Pastor Williams continued, examples of commitment, faithfulness, and enduring love. Charles made a small, strangled sound beside me, sweat beading on his forehead, his complexion turning greenish. Are you okay? I whispered, knowing he wasn't. Bathroom, he hissed. Where's the bathroom? I pointed to the door at the far end of the hall, deliberately distant. Through there, down the hall on the left. He nodded jerkily and edged away as the pastor praised our model marriage. Charles embodies what it means to be a devoted husband, the pastor said, his unwavering commitment to Helen, an inspiration to us all. I watched Charles's retreating back, his shoulders hunched, steps urgent. Everything was unfolding perfectly. He was gone nearly 20 minutes. Pastor Williams finished, and guests mingled awkwardly, glancing at the bathroom door. I circulated, accepting congratulations with a gracious smile, assuring everyone Charles was just under the weather, but would return soon. Michael sidled up, concerned. Is Dad okay? He looked rough. You know your father, I said lightly. Probably nervous about surprises. He never liked them. He was about to get the biggest one yet. When Charles emerged, he looked ghostly, face ashen, hair damp, shirt clinging. He shuffled back, each step cautious. Helen, he whispered urgently, I need to go home. I'm sick. I met his eyes innocently. But honey, we haven't cut the cake. Everyone's waiting. I don't care, he hissed. I think I might be dying. Don't be dramatic. I patted his arm. Just a stomach upset. Here, ginger ale. I handed him a glass laced with fast-acting laxative, the finale. Before he could protest, Marge's husband clinked a glass. Gather round, time for cake cutting. The crowd surged. Charles looked trapped. Social norms are ironclad in our southern circle, even with turmoil inside. You don't bolt from your anniversary party. The cake rolled out, my custom topper shining a lone woman, poised and strong. Charles squinted, confusion overtaking panic. What's that supposed to be? You'll understand soon, I said, handing him the knife. Shall we do this together one last time? He shot me a sharp look, but cameras rose, phones recording. He forced a grimace smile, positioning the knife. Wait, I said clearly. Before we cut, I'd like a few words. Murmurs of approval. Charles's knuckles whitened on the handle. Helen, please, he muttered. I really need. It won't take long, dear. I stepped to the mic. Friends, family, neighbors, thank you for celebrating what was supposed to be 45 years of marriage, love, and fidelity. The emphasis on supposed to be rippled confusion through the room. Charles's eyes widened. He sensed the shift. Marriage is built on trust, I continued, heart hammering but voice steady. On honesty, on keeping promises. Isn't that right, Charles? He nodded mechanically, sweat streaming, body rigid. So imagine my surprise when I discovered my husband of 45 years has been living a double life. A collective gasp. Eyes swiveled to Charles, frozen in horror. Helen, his voice cracked. Whatever you think. Oh, I know everything, Charles. I unveiled the poster board. I know about Elizabeth Patterson, the plastic surgeon's wife. I know about your secret account. I know about the one-way Cayman tickets. The enlarged photos were stark. The kiss in his car, entering her Buckhead home, the Street Regis check-in. No denial possible. The room erupted in shocked exclamations. Pastor Williams's jaw dropped. Marge covered her mouth. Michael stared at his father, disappointment etching his face. Dad, he said, voice heavy with hurt. Is this true? Charles gaped, but before words formed, His body rebelled. A loud gurgle echoed over the murmurs. His eyes panicked. "Helen," he gasped. "What have you done?" I smiled sweetly. "Nothing compared to what you've done, dear." Charles lunged for the bathroom, but it was too late. The internal war exploded right there, in front of 40 witnesses, a visceral humiliation beyond mere exposure. I won't detail it. Some dignities remain, even in revenge. Chaos ensued. Gasps, averted eyes, the scent of disaster mingling with catered aromas. I stayed calm, thanking shell-shocked caterers, assuring the manager we'd cover cleaning, suggesting guests head home. Michael remained, helping me to a chair, face pale. "Mom?" He knelt. "Why didn't you tell me? I could have been here for you." I patted his cheek. "This was mine to handle, sweetheart. Some journeys are solo." He gestured toward the bathroom, where Charles's distress continued. "But did you? A little something in his breakfast?" I admitted. "Nothing dangerous, just effective." He stared, then laughed disbelievingly. "Remind me never to cross you." "You're a good boy," I said. "You take after my side." Eventually, Charles emerged, broken clothes ruined, dignity shattered. He couldn't meet our eyes. "I'll call a cab," Michael said coldly. "Don't think you should ride with Mom," Charles nodded numbly. "Helen, we need to talk." "What you did, what I did," I stood, voice like steel. "What I did was give you the public humiliation you planned for me. Did you think I'd wake to find you gone with our savings?" He looked ashamed. "It wasn't like that. I was going to provide for you. Save it. We're done, Charles. Out of the house by tomorrow." "Where will I go?" He bewildered. I eyed him, pity mixing with disgust. "Ask Elizabeth, though after today, she might rethink that big Buckhead house." Michael cleared his throat. "Cab's here, Dad." Charles glanced between us, seeking forgiveness, finding none. He shuffled out, door clicking shut final as a period. Michael hugged me. "You okay, Mom?" I breathed deep, heaviness lifting. "I think I am." The community center emptied, echoes of whispers lingering like smoke after a fire. In our southern enclave, scandals spread like kudzu, but I'd reclaimed my narrative. No more the fooled wife, I was Helen, unbroken. The cake sat untouched, its lone figure a beacon. I'd cut it later, alone, savoring the sweetness of freedom. 1 year has passed since I exposed Charles Montgomery's double life to our slice of Atlanta. 1 year since I stood amid the ruins of our marriage in that community center, breathing freedom for the first time in decades. A lot can change in a year, especially in a city like Atlanta, where the seasons shift from sweltering summers to crisp falls, mirroring the transformations in our own lives. Charles moved in with Elizabeth Patterson, as I'd predicted, but it didn't last. Once doctor, Patterson received an anonymous package of those photos at his office, courtesy of a woman who'd had enough their illicit romance crumbled faster than my mama's cornbread. Last I heard, Charles rents a modest apartment near the senior center, still on the board, though attendance has waned amid the whispers. We haven't spoken since the divorce finalized 6 months ago. It was surprisingly civil. Perhaps guilt kept him from fighting, or embarrassment from airing our anniversary spectacle in court. I got the house, half his pension, and most vitally, my dignity. Michael calls more now. Seeing his father's fall made him cherish family time, fragile as a spiderweb in the wind. He's mulling a move back to Atlanta, starting a tech firm here instead of toiling in California's Silicon haze. I'd welcome it. Independence is sweet, but southern roots run deep, and having kin nearby feels like home. My sister Judy stayed a month post-chaos, helping sort Charles's things, repainting the bedroom a soothing blue I'd always wanted, but he'd vetoed. We shared wine on the porch, lightning bugs dancing as I swung between tears and laughter, grieving not just the man, but the illusion of our shared life. "You're mourning the story you told yourself," she said, wise as ever. She was right. Older sisters often are. The neighbors were scandalized, naturally. In our tight-knit suburb, where church potlucks and garden clubs knit us together, some sided with Charles, whispering, I'd gone too far with the humiliation. But more rallied to me than I'd dared hope. Marge drops casseroles every Sunday, like when Mama passed, her cheese-laden dishes a comfort in the quiet evenings. Betty Wilkerson delivered on her margarita promise. We've become fast friends, swapping tales of betrayal over salt-rimmed glasses, stories that would curl Pastor Williams's toes. Speaking of him, he asked me to step down from choir, citing my actions clashed with Christian forgiveness. I found a new church across town, led by a female pastor who preaches empowerment, drawing on the woman at the well, Jesus lifting her up, not casting stones. It fits me better, this place where grace meets grit. The hardest wasn't the gossip, the empty bed, or dividing 45 years of mementos. It was facing the mirror each morning, asking, who is Helen Montgomery without Charles? Without being wife, mother, neighbor, who am I? Just for me? I'm still unraveling that, like pulling threads from an old quilt. Some days, the loneliness hits like a summer storm, sudden and soaking. But I've taken up watercolor painting, a dream deferred amid homemaking duties. My strokes are clumsy, colors bleeding unpredictably, but the act brings joy, creating beauty from blank pages, much like rebuilding a life. I joined a walking group at the park, mostly women my age, widows, divorcees, singles. We circle the lake, chatting politics, grandkids, healthcare costs, senior discounts at the local diner. Everyday talk, untethered from cheating spouses or public reckonings, grounding me in the simple rhythms of Atlanta's green spaces. Last month, I went on my first date since 1979 coffee with Harold from the group, a widower whose wife left 2 years back. He's kind, shy, with a wit that sneaks up like a backroad detour. We talked books, travel dreams, 3 hours flew. No hand-holding or kisses, just a smile and I enjoyed your company. I felt a spark of disappointment, surprising myself. We've met 4 more times. Yesterday, he held my hand walking to our cars. His palm was warm, rough, different from Charles's softer touch. Nice, in its newness. No rush. At 68, time's a gentle current, not a torrent. But possibilities bloom like dogwoods in spring. The squirreled away money tracked by Shanice funded better things. I saw the Grand Canyon, my first solo trip. At its edge, vast and ancient, my pains shrank against eternity's canvas. I took a helicopter ride, the old Helen too timid, but the real one laughed through dips and turns, exhilarated by the view. I won't pretend no sadness lingers wondering where I faltered, if things could differ. 45 years isn't all bad. We raised Michael, had good early years. But long marriages erode from 1,000 tiny choices, unspoken gripes, TV over-talk, drifting into separate orbits under one roof, until you're strangers sharing coffee preferences. I don't hate Charles anymore. That flame extinguished between divorce papers and clearing his closet. What's left is detached pity, and on good days, hope he finds peace. We all deserve that, even hurters. This year alone, first since 22, taught me strength I never knew. True friends in crisis, that reinvention knows no age. Joy in small pleasures, a perfect hydrangea bloom, a well-brewed tea, big adventures, canyon flights, new hands to hold. The end of one tale births another. My marriage ended, but life thrives. I survived the lie, found peace. If this touched you, subscribe, keep these voices alive. This morning, I woke in my blue bedroom, sunlight through chosen curtains warming my face. Coffee, 1 cup, carried to the porch swing once ours, now mine. It rocks the same, chains creaking softly. Birds sing in the magnolia. A child laughs down the street. Simple sounds of dawn. That's when it hit. I'm not surviving. I'm living, really living, perhaps first time. And that, friends, is the sweetest revenge. Now, where are you listening from? Comment your state. God bless.